session. All right. So we got a few things in the agenda. First up on the roadmap review, I've got our 17.4 planning issue. I think folks have seen it. I sent it out last week and did the recording. If you haven't watched it, here are our key themes here. We're starting to apply our dark mode vision to Pajamas components. So Jeremy and Sasha did a really great run through of the dark mode direction with Angela a few weeks back. You should absolutely watch that video if you haven't. Really, really good presentation and really good buy-in from our VP of UX. We're starting to apply some of those concepts into our Pajamas components via the token work we've been doing. We're going to continue rolling out more design tokens to GitLab UI, and then starting to explore usage outside of Pajamas. So looking at the GitLab CSS, and applying all of the tokens that we've defined so far in that environment, making sure all of the decisions we've made still work, figuring out, areas that we'll need to improve upon, and thinking about how we can provide guidance for the rest of the teams when we start asking them to do all of that work. So, any questions about the direction for this milestone?
No, but you said we should watch this video. Where's this video?
I will reshare it in our group chat. It was in the Pajamas channel a few weeks back.
Perfect. I'll figure it out. Thanks, Jeff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about some of these active projects. On the design token side, Vanessa, I see you got something to start there?
Yeah, but no update from the comments in the issues and merge request. The GL form text and broadcast and date picker are all assigned to me and are open, but there's progress, and they will be done at some point. For the GL form text, the design token work is done already like days ago. The only question that is still open for me is if we actually need to have this component at all or not. I can also split them up mentally to say the design token issue is actually done and I open a new issue for me if we actually need to keep it.
Does anyone have opinions on whether that token needs to exist or that component needs to exist now, or is there someone that we need to make sure follows up on that? Is it me? I hope it's not me.
No, I had the discussion with Dan and Scott, and I think we all agreed we don't really need it.
Okay.
It's also not too hurtful to keep it. The only thing I have to do is to make sure that we really don't use it anywhere anymore. It's not in the GitLab main repo anymore, but I have to check the other repos.
Okay.
So it doesn't need a follow-up. The only follow-up is from me.
Okay, cool. That's understood.
And I'm working on tokens for that as well in the moment. So that was part of that other one, Vanessa, for the controls just in general. I think that was looped into that. And then I'm parsing that out into like a separate MR right now for some of the design changes to those tokens. So for that same component.
Very cool. How about on the design side of design tokens? Dan, any interesting updates to share? Anything you need from folks?
I am deep in the MRs, which is very exciting, but it's also very time consuming. I think my day starts with about 25 comments on MRs, which is good. Things that people can help with is if you ask a question and I answer it, we should probably be capturing that not just in my comment. So let's start moving these things into places where others who may ask those questions can find it, either by saying, "Hey Dan, can you put this somewhere?" and I'll endeavor to do it, or go in, "Hey, I'm going to put this somewhere," and I'll go, "Yes, thank you very much." Next on design tokens, my after reviewing MRs and trying to keep stuff moving, my second priority is the definitions for the remaining components from GitLab UI. Just before this call, I added a batch 4 to the applying design tokens file. I've got the 10 or so sections ready to work through. So that's my next priority, getting those started. I will be pinging people to say, hey, here's what it looks, what actually is in control of this component and what does it inherit from elsewhere. So thanks if you've done that in the past as well, super helpful. And then my third thing I will be doing is trying to get these design tokens into the UI kit, into the Figma components themselves. It's been very cool to preview some of the components that we've already updated to dark mode in GitLab UI and see that it just kind of goes ta-da and just works in Figma. I am very looking forward to when that process becomes much less manual. If you dislike seeing people do manual work and you like watching me shout at the screen and pull out hair, then I uploaded a video of a small batch update. Here endeth my ramble.
I enjoyed that video. It was painful to watch. On that note, Dan, it seems like Ian had picked up a lot of the follow-up from that. Is that enough, or do you need more engineering support on that, right? Like, has Ian got this handled, or do we need to bring in more engineers to help solve this problem?
I think that's a question for Ian to answer. Because
Yeah.
I don't know, because I haven't looked.
Yeah, I
I
did
guess
like
we
your
can
suggestion
ask
of
Ian for an update on sort of how long that's going to take, and then Dan, you could let us know if those changes make a meaningful difference in the headache. I think we did want to be cautious about putting too much time into the plugin if we know that long term we should just be automating it entirely. But if I remember, there were some big challenges with that.
See, I don't think Ian is on the call. Chris, could I ask you to follow up with him on
No,
that?
he's out. Yeah, I'll follow up with him. He's out sick today.
Thank you for that. All right, assign that over to you. Cool. All right. Well, Dan, thank you for your work on all this. 25 MRs every morning is a lot, but isn't it nice to feel needed? Isn't that rewarding?
not 25 MRs, just about 25 comments, like the actions. My contribution graph is on fire at the minute. It's very
There you go.
satisfying, but also painful.
There you go. Just setting you up for that next review cycle. Look at all this stuff that I've done. Look how busy I've been. Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, on the dark mode side of things, I guess this is frankly Jeremy. How's it going? You're a one-man show on this at the moment.
Oh, with Sasha too. I started working on just bringing tokens straight into, pick up issues in GitLab UI and unify things. It is cumbersome. It is very cumbersome. Started with control, and because a lot of controls have shared things, and then it was like, oh, we also need to fix this and we need to do that for the tokens to work. And so it blossomed really quickly. So I had to step back and separate that into several smaller MRs. And even another MR that was smaller is starting to grow again, because we realized that it just needs to, otherwise we're just going to have like a circle of breaking changes. And so very manual. I thought it would go a little quicker, but to this point, only pieces and parts have merged after a week or so of trying. So, and that part of that is it leads into my point further on. But and then as far as the design side, I met with Sasha for a bit earlier before this call. We're going to still keep working on other components that we can figure out design for. But even something like as simple as an accordion, just as one example, it's like, oh, the text content from the accordion is coming from Bootstrap styles. And so because it's coming from Bootstrap reset. And so it's like, we don't have our own GitLab reset. So it's like, now we're working through, oh, we have to create a GitLab reset to reset Bootstrap reset. And we got to figure out where to put that just so that like something simple like content within an accordion can have like just default text styles. Like, so there's just lots of layers to it. That's like a really simple one that I thought, oh, design wise, there's just two things I need to address. Well, not so fast. You know, so there's many things like that we're bumping into. It's good. It's a lot of really good refactoring, but and then integration branches aren't working for GitLab UI right now, and so that's adding a whole nother problem to like I'm having to learn how to manually create an integration branch, and so there's just a lot of friction right now.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
I think the same question I gave to Dan to you, Jeremy, like, do you need engineering help to fix them and integration branches? I saw Paul was involved in the discussion, but I don't know where we landed on that.
Yeah, there's no fix that I'm aware of right now. So, and yeah. So yes, short answer is yes. Engineering help would be fantastic because I think Dan ran into that earlier as well. I think Paul's workflow is normally just to create them manually. So I don't think it impacted everybody the same way, but
are we saying is it broken, or is it something that, sorry, is it something that should work or something that we'd like to work, kind of thing? Like,
it's something that should work. Yeah.
Like it
Yeah,
worked previously and now it doesn't.
Right. Yeah, the jobs fail. It's interesting. They actually create a branch in GitLab, but they don't follow through with the MR piece of it, as I understand it. And so we get like this branch that we don't even know about that exists in GitLab now, but no MR associated with it.
Okay.
For the integration.
I'll make a note to find someone to help with that, because
that'd be awesome.
We're going to be
Thank you.
using a lot of these, right? Like,
yeah.
Paul said that he will take a closer look.
What was that? Sorry, Vanessa. Did you say Paul said he was going to take a closer look?
Yeah, so at least I would first check in with him if he already is doing something.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you for the update on that, Jeremy. We can talk about your next topic here in just a second. I know you had originally looked at like, we'll spec things out in Figma and then we'll do things in code, and you're like, maybe it's better to just do it all at once. If you feel like, we need to leave all of the devy stuff to dev, I'm happy to schedule that in and shuffle things around to make sure you get the support you need on it.
No, to me, it's one and the same. Like, I believe in code first, or designing code anyhow. And so I would much rather go that route, because otherwise we're going to have to redo it in Figma anyways, because of the circle of life with that. There'd just be throwaway artifacts. So we're doing that just as needed, like for exploration. And then it's like, oh, Sasha and I are like, yes, this is the direction for this component. Cool, let's codify it. Otherwise it's, it's pretty straightforward. So,
that makes sense.
Straightforward is maybe crooked, but you know what I'm saying. So,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly just let us know whatever you need. It sounds like the big thing that's needed here is putting a nail in the coffin on Bootstrap. We vendored it, but we're still relying on a lot of styles that we don't truly have control of. So maybe that's the next big thing for Dev Sam after we get all of these tokens implemented in GitLab UI is go through and figure out how to reset this foundation.
Yeah, it's a bigger problem than I'd like it to be honest.
Yeah.
All vendoring it has done has given us the option to refactor things without having to
Right.
go in upstream, right? Like it's still a lot of work removing things because unfortunately Bootstrap was the foundation and it's so intermeshed with what we're doing that it's as Jeremy was saying earlier, right? Like it pops up in places where you're like, oh, it's here too. Like, it's not fun. But yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. We should work on that.
I think one thing that would help, Sam, is so we're focusing on like component level stuff. And Dan, maybe you have more insight into this, but things like just general text color, or we'll just start there, just text color, icon color, like general product things. That's where like the accordion seemed to be falling back to Bootstrap. Like even if there was like an opinion from Dev, because right now there hasn't been really an opinion. Scott weighed in a little bit, like, well, we could just put it here. But if we had like Dev saying, okay, here's our reset that is effectively going to take the place of Bootstrap, it might help in a lot of these content situations if we say, okay, the default text color is X. And so any component that's using the default text color should inherit that and not end up falling back onto Bootstrap things. That would be, I think, one area that would help. I don't know if Dan, if that resonates with you or not, but.
Could you link me to that specific MR, Jeremy, just so I can get a better context of like what that reset is, what it's doing, and
Yeah, I'll try to find that.
you know,
Yeah.
like resetting the reset seems not fun, but I don't know what the reset's doing and why it's there. I think if I have a bit more
Yeah,
context.
actually, let me. I'll just. Yeah, I'll just link it in here and in the thread. I'll add it to the document here in a second, but.
Okay, thank you.
It's kind of yeah. There's other components, you know, like alerts, popovers, anything that contains content that'll maybe fall back to these just basic what we set at the content level that these components will inherit. So rather than trying to do it through the component and realizing like, oh, it's not set yet at a lower level, if we had that lower level set, then we're isolating our components more and more from Bootstrap, which I think would be helpful. So.
Cool. I'll follow up on that. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Let's get rid of Bootstrap.
Cool. Appreciate that. All right. Moving on, we got a couple discussion topics. So continuing on with our theme of dark mode, Sasha and Jeremy presented to VP of UX, got her buy-in, but now we need to share it with the rest of the product org. So we're getting on the calendar for the PM monthly, whatever they call it, product monthly, for I think September 10th. And as part of that, we want to share what we're doing, but also take the opportunity to start asking for things from the broader product org. And so my question to you is, what should we be asking for? Like, what do we need to be able to achieve our plans of rolling out dark mode to the entire product? Our goal is the end of this fiscal year. That's increasingly seeming more and more optimistic, but as soon as possible, what do we need their help on to do it as soon as possible? Like those half-baked thoughts, Dan. Extra doughy in the middle, very squishy, very good.
This one's pure raw egg on this one. But like screenshots, reproduction guides, I think we know what we can see, which is the design system, but I don't think we know really what feature teams are doing that's outside of the design system.
Yeah.
The sooner we can see those and try and apply the design tokens to them, probably the better. Gives us a good set of test, good place to test what we're doing.
Okay. I like that idea, Sam. Just help communicate. Like, hey, you've heard this thing.
Yeah,
Now go tell all of your peers and have them tell all their peers, and
like and
we'll
share,
go viral.
right? Like that's what we're. But no, I think this is something that I don't want to be in a spot where we're getting feedback of like, hey, things are changing, what's going on? Like people should know what's changing and what's going on. And if we can put that out to I don't know who's in the product monthly, but like the product people, and
Yeah.
we'll do the same on the engineering side, and then it'll filter through. And I want people to be sick of hearing about dark mode. Like,
I think that's a good target. That's a
For
good
the
target.
buy-in from the rest of the org on the engineering front, would we just need to replace like any color variables that we're using?
For the most part, the biggest challenge is we're shifting kind of the mental model where you're not just saying this thing is red, you're saying this thing is dangerous. And so you have to go through and do that semantic translation of, well, the code originally says this, but it's supposed to mean this. And you need to encode that meaning into the CSS. That's the big work.
That's a migration project, same as pajamas migration, right?
Essentially. Yeah, there's probably a lot of rules that we can put in place that will take care of many things, but there's going to be just as many items that are going to require somebody to look at them and understand what it was trying to do, and then encode that intent into the CSS.
Do you mean like we're going to see how many we can fix ourselves and then work out how much is left over for the other teams?
Essentially, we've got a OKR this quarter to replace a pretty decent chunk of the findings that we've got in the GitLab CSS. We're specifically going to focus on the things that we can do in large batches, like translating grayscale stuff into the standard like text default or text subtle that we largely know is what it should be. But when you start getting into the nitty-gritty stuff like, this security icon color, like what is that supposed to mean? We can't answer that. Like we need the people that are subject matter experts of those features to answer that.
But we could create issues for each finding, right?
Yeah, we probably could. We've got all of the findings. I don't know that we have as good a mapping for who owns them as we do for like components and pajamas migrations, but we could probably get pretty far with assigning things out.
So would that be what it is we need to communicate to the rest of the business? Just here's a list of the colors in your area that need migrating. Would there be anything else, or am I missing something?
I think another thing would be like, hey, we're making big changes to a foundational layer of the application. Like, check your corners, basically. Like, make sure your edge cases are still working the way that you'd intend. And even some of the changes that we do over here might affect something they shouldn't, but they might affect some really obscure thing in your area of the code base. So like be aware of that and do go and check these kind of thing. Like it's more it's that part of it that you were talking about, and then there's that other part of here's what we're doing. You need to be aware of what we're doing to figure out how that affects you as well, right? I don't want to be ending out with them weird things where like half of it's dark mode, half of it's not. We've got this weird Frankenstein. I don't know. I'm inventing things that may or may not happen, but like there's definitely going to be side effects of this, and I want people to go, oh, that's because of the dark mode stuff that people are doing. Let's go talk to them.
Right.
Yeah. I do think that's a good point, though, James, that we can give them a lot of very clear guidance on you need to do this work. But it's the stuff that we don't have clear guidance on and we don't really know is happening that I really, really want their help on. Like, look at your pages in dark mode and tell us that it's completely busted and let us help you fix it. Cool. We're coming up on time here. I want to spend at least a minute on the topic that Jeremy has brought up here. So Chris, I'm going to look over your items that you've added here async. Jeremy, you got a point here about separating alpha from beta dark mode.
Yeah, there was just some lack of clarity on the plan there. I think the original thought was that we were going to separate it so we could test beta this work independently, but it seems like that's not the case. So any changes we're doing to tokens right now are available for dark mode alpha users, which means that we could be introducing potentially breaking changes or less than ideal things. And so it's I'm experiencing it right now where it's forcing decisions between do I go through this integration branch and like fix all of the things that are going to be broken when I update to the desired design direction, or B, do I wait, excuse me, to update the token design because of these things, which means that we get tech debt in GitLab UI. So that's what I'm facing right now. One example I linked to is like popovers. So since popovers take a custom slot, people put in content that might not have the style. So our default popover, the title to the text content has the right colors, but as soon as you use that in the wild, iconography, text, other meta attributes that get brought in are going to be using other styles and colors. And so there's not going to be sufficient contrast against the background. Am I expected to go through an integration branch and fix all of those? Or is it just expected that, hey, this is alpha, that's the way it's going to be? And in some level now we're taking on alpha support because people are going to be like, I can't read this or whatever. Or do I just say, screw it, I'm not going to have like consistent tokens or match the design direction right now because there's too many downstream impacts, which then we're not really delivering on the consistency piece that we're promising with tokens. And we're inheriting that debt, and then we have to track like actually later we need to fix these things. And so long-winded, sorry, but that's what I'm kind of running into right now with our changes just essentially being part of alpha.
No, I appreciate you bringing that up. Like originally we were talking about doing this new dark mode as a completely separate thing, specifically to avoid the risks that you're describing. I know there was some back and forth on the engineering side of like, maybe we don't need to pay that cost because it's going to be very expensive and we can get started with the not risky stuff in the existing tokens. But I think there was always this understanding that, if the risk and the benefits are worth it, we could do the heavier lift thing. So I think if you're finding that right out of the gate, we're already running into these issues, that's probably sufficient for us to go back and talk with engineering counterparts to make sure that we're approaching it in the right way.
I think what Jeff said there is spot on, right? Like we said, let's not do it right away. Let's start this when we hit this wall. It sounds like you're saying we're hitting that wall. We should probably introduce that third mode. I think one thing I would say if we do introduce that is we need to be very deliberate when we're saying we're making this change to dark mode versus whatever this other one's called. Like, let's give it a ridiculous project name, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, but something that's not easily confused with dark mode. Because I've already got myself confused a few times when I've been reading through issues and things. There's dark mode vision. I think nact mode was a good one. Like,
yeah,
there's a few. We should figure that out. But yeah, there's just a bit of lifting from dev to introduce that third mode. And once we, like, it's almost like a fork. So once we introduce it, then bringing it back into dark mode it's harder the longer the two of them exist. But if we're at that point now where we need to have that third one, then
and to that point too, like I want to make sure that I'm not exaggerating either, right? Because it is still alpha, so to some degree we should expect these defects or whatever we want to call them. And it might not be for all components. Like Sasha's running into it with labels where labels in some places that are using Vue work, but Haml doesn't. And so like it's going to require some extra engineering effort. So if we update the tokens for labels, they're going to look great in one place, but the other place they're not. And so now you look like you have two different components. You're not even connecting, like this is the same label in two places. So there's a UX bug we're introducing as well. And so I think it's more than just one, but I just bring it up because I want to know like how, like Sasha's like investigating, like where is this happening? And really, if we were isolating the effort, it could just be like, we worry about that during a migration and not now while we're, since it's released in alpha. So
yeah, I was expecting to have to pay all that cost later. That was largely the GA phase, the GA epic. I expected it to be that. It's like, okay, it's in beta. It's broken in a million places. Let's go fix those so the quality is sufficient for us to call it GA. I think one area we should be very cognizant of right now is that there's a lot of push on the product and design side to improve the quality of the product and not ship or modify experiences in a way that degrades the quality, introduces defects, reduces the user experience. So even though alpha is alpha and not supported, it is still in use. And so we should be cautious about making changes that are going to make that experience worse.
Yeah.
So all this says to me is that like we should be looking at introducing this third knocked mode and starting to iterate on that and figuring out how to bring these changes back into the product in a way that's going to be like stable and deliberate.
I shall break the news to Scott, and we'll get working on that.
Awesome.
But yeah,
Thanks, Sam.
no, appreciate you bringing this up as well, Jeremy. Right, like it's you were always the person that was going to let us know when we hit that point. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Apologies.
So I was already tagged as like I'm the person you expected this.
Oh yeah. It was you or Sasha, and I talked to you more. So
well, Sasha's running into it now, but he's not on this call. I can jump back into Figma and stay in my lane if you want.
No. I love this. Join us.
Yeah.
Awesome. It was really good discussion today. We're over time. Sorry about that. We can actually talk if we should extend this, if there's more stuff that folks want to cover in this every week. Every other week, I'm happy to extend it. But otherwise, thank you very much, and I hope you have a lovely afternoon.